So good evening, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to all the journalists who have joined. My name is Tamara Al-Rifai. I am the UNRWA spokesperson and have the extreme privilege of being the moderator of this press conference with very high-level officials and supporters of UNRWA on this panel. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Ayman Safadi, the Foreign Minister of Jordan, to give his remarks to the media, the press corps that is represented here with us, followed by His Excellency Mr. Peter Eriksson, the Minister of International Development and Cooperation of Sweden, and then His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General, and then followed by the UNRWA Commissioner General, Mr. Philip Lazzarini. So, Mr. Safadi, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning to you all. Your Excellency, Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, dear friends and colleagues, I want to start by thanking you all for the tremendous work that has been done. Your presence, Mr. Secretary General, was extremely important in sending the message that we all stand by UNRWA as it continues to perform its noble, essential, and vital duties towards Palestinian refugees. I think the message from today was clear and sound. Representatives of many countries and international organizations came together to reiterate their support for UNRWA, their support for Palestinian refugees, and the need to make sure that we all come in effectively to ensure that UNRWA has the funds necessary for it to continue with its operations. The time is very sensitive, time is very delicate. UNRWA is not only having to deal with its normal duties, but it's also having to face the consequences of Corona. And it is an extremely important time as well to send a message of hope and solidarity to Palestinian refugees as we all face the extremely dangerous decision by Israel to annex 1/3 of the West Bank, which will ultimately kill the two-state solution and deny all peoples of the region their right to live in a just and lasting peace. Support to UNRWA must not falter, for faltering would mean abandoning and giving up on over 5 million Palestinian refugees. We're talking about real life needs here. We're talking about children's right to go to schools, about the ill to get treatment, about the needy to be able to put food on the table for their families. So this is a commitment that we hope that we will continue to work with our friends and partners to meet. Last year, the world spoke unanimously almost in supporting UNRWA, and now we needed to act unanimously and effectively as well in ensuring that it continues to do its work. I want to thank our dear partner Sweden for the long and effective partnership that we've had in trying to ensure international support for UNRWA. And I want to thank all our friends and partners who attended today's event and those who could not, but who have always stood in support of UNRWA. Once again, today was a demonstration of our collective will to do what's right, to stand in the side of justice, and to make sure that people, Palestinian refugees, get the support that they have. And the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, as the largest host of Palestinian refugees and as the largest donor to Palestinian refugees, remains committed to working with all of you to making sure that UNRWA continues to do its vital work. And again, a great word of thanks to the UN, represented by the Secretary General and UNRWA, for the tremendous job that they continue to do. We stand together in facing this challenge. And again, thank you all for all your good work today. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and a reminder to the journalists present on this panel to please write your questions, and we will take them as soon as the comments by the panelists are over. Over to you, Your Excellency, Mr. Eriksson.
Thank you so much. Today, the international community came together to support over 5 million Palestine refugees, and UNRWA services are crucial for the stability in the whole region, I should say, and they make it possible for 500,000 children to go to school, and they make it possible for Palestine refugees to go to 143 health clinics all over the region. This is crucial, as also the COVID-19 pandemic has hit an already vulnerable population hard. And I should say that this meeting today has shown a very strong political support for the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian refugees and the UNRWA as an organization. We have had 59 countries making statements and pledges today, and around 35 ministers have been taking part of this. So I think the support is extremely strong, and I must remember each one of us that we are in a situation that is extremely tough also on the financial side. Lots of countries are feeling an insecure situation about what is happening to the economy, and in that situation it's very hard to get a strong financial support as well. But I think we have made very substantial support, also financial, to the UNRWA organization today. But there is still more needed, and it is important to fully fund the UNRWA organization if we want also the stability in the region to stay as we hope, and peace will come in the coming years.
Thank you so much, Mr. Eriksson. We hope so too. I would like to give the floor now to His Excellency, the UN Secretary General, and inform the journalists that unfortunately the Secretary General is going to have to leave after this and sadly will not be with us for the questions and answers. Mr. Secretary General, the floor is yours.
Presented by Philippe Lazzarini, our Commissioner General, but I thought it was my duty to convey a very strong message of gratitude and support. As I said this morning, our objective today was clear: to come together to mobilize political and financial support for the vital work of UNRWA, an agency that is not only a lifeline for millions of Palestinian refugees, but also critical for regional stability. I want to thank all of the donors for stepping up at a critical time and reaffirming solidarity with the Palestinian refugees. The amounts pledged today will help ensure that UNRWA continues to deliver on its humanitarian mandate, while also meeting some of the most critical sustainable development goals to ensure that truly no one is left behind. Today represents an important step, but much more is needed. We must continue to make every effort to guarantee strong and predictable UNRWA financing at a time of instability, volatility, and great vulnerability for Palestinian refugees and for the Middle East. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General, for your presence, for your support, for your words. And now I give the floor to the UNRWA Commissioner General, my boss.
Thank you, Tamara. Good afternoon or good morning, colleagues. As you heard from the Minister of Jordan and Sweden, and also by the Secretary General, we had today a new, very strong, I would say, expression of support to UNRWA and to the Palestinian refugees. And let me start also by expressing my deep appreciation to Minister Safadi and to Minister Eriksson for having led and organized this important event today, but also to the Secretary General for your unwavering support to the Palestinian refugees and to UNRWA. And I think it's also important to reckon the importance of and the role being played by the host country here in the region, providing a host to 5.6 million refugees in Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza. As indicated, today was a milestone in a series of high-level events. The pledging conference ended up with an estimated $130 million. In the coming weeks, we'll have to unpack and see what the impact on the budget of UNRWA will be all about. But clearly, as the Secretary General indicated, much more is needed. Today, the organization is confronted to multiple challenges, whether related to the threat of the annexation, whether related to the economic and financial downfall in Lebanon, or also to the conflict in Syria. And as you know, we had COVID-19, and COVID-19 is also more severely impacting the most vulnerable, among them the Palestinian refugees. And today we are in a situation where despair and hopelessness is growing in the camp, and because of that, there are more and more expectations also for UNRWA to deliver. And this is happening in an environment where the financial and the economic situation is also much more complicated. So among all the challenges the organization is confronted with, the financial situation is one of the most important one, and this is the reason why we have conveyed today, and I think it was really reassuring to get this strong political support, and in the coming months we will have to make sure that this is translated into matching resource. I think most of the participants highlighted the role UNRWA is playing in the stability in the region by investing in human development, by investing in education and in health services here in the region. And ultimately, let me just remind that UNRWA was created 70 years ago. No one expected that the agencies would last so long at that time, but also no one has decided to remain a refugee for 70 years. And today it's more important than ever that we do not fail, because there is not yet a political solution, a fair and lasting one. It is important that we do not fail the Palestinian refugees in a highly, I would say, unstable environment. Thank you, Tamara.
Thank you, Mr. Lazzarini. Thank you to all our speakers. We already have a number of questions. I'm going to group them when I can, if they're in the same direction, and I'm going to address them to specific panelists when they are addressed in already in the question. So we have a question from Nidal Al-Mughrabi from Reuters saying that already in May, UNRWA said it was operating on a month-by-month basis budget because of lack of funding. Has the situation improved since then? Have you been able to attract larger contributions from donors who are committed to helping UNRWA? Have you attracted new donors? And if not, what sort of cuts or reduction in services would you take? And along the same lines, there is a question from Al Mamlaka TV about the financial situation of UNRWA. These two questions are addressed to Mr. Lazzarini. And the last question is addressed to Mr. Lazzarini and to Minister Safadi about the impact of the funding shortage on education and health services in Jordan, whether there will be an impact of this funding shortage. I will give the floor to Mr. Lazzarini and Mr. Safadi, and then take some other questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Just one of the main reasons of this conference today was to talk about the financial situation of UNRWA. We have today a funding model which is not sustainable for two reasons. First, the resources are not matching the services UNRWA is providing to the 5.6 million refugee in the region. But secondly, also because UNRWA is constantly running after the cash. We have very little predictability or visibility beyond a few weeks. So you are right by saying months after months. This is a way for the time being we are dealing with the cash flow of the organization. Now, it's not sustainable because we are talking about an organization of more than 30,000 staff, providing service school to more than 500,000 children, with health services to nearly 2 million people in the region, and so on. So that's one of the reasons we had this meeting today. Number one, to address the funding gap between now and the end of the year, and we will pursue, as indicated by the Secretary General, our effort to fill the gap, and also to promote a multi-year agreement with the member states. UNRWA is a highly predictable organization when it comes to its funding. We know year after year what the organization will cost, and hence the importance to promote this kind of activities. When it comes to the cut, just one comment. Previously, the organization has been very much involved in saving a number of costs. The total amounts to about $500 million in 5 years, an average of $100 million. But clearly, this cost, this saving, come also with a cost. Number one, we had to increase the number of children in every classroom. We haven't been able over the last few years to invest in the maintenance of our building, and I have to say our IT equipment is obsolete at a time we talk more and more about digital transformation or digital access in education. There is no intention at this stage to cut any of the core services. The intention is to have a in-depth discussion with the member state to look at how can we overcome the financial gap of the organization. Back to you.
Thank you. And there was a question about specifically the impact on Jordan, but I guess you answered it generally. So I give the floor to Mr. Safadi.
Thank you so much. As I said earlier, the kingdom is the largest host of Palestinian refugees. Our Palestinian refugee population is over 2.3 million. We have 121,000 Palestinian refugee kids who go to about 169 schools run by UNRWA. Over 1 million people benefit from UNRWA health services as well. So it is imperative that we get the funds that UNRWA needs to continue to offer the vital services to those refugees. Obviously, refugees in Jordan and elsewhere will be affected by any reduction in funding, and that's why we continue to work with our partners in UNRWA to make sure that this does not happen and that the agency continues to deliver its key services to the refugee population in the kingdom. As you know, in Jordan, like many other countries, we are facing the tremendous economic consequences of measures we've taken to ensure the safety of our citizens and of course all refugees, Syrians and Palestinians, and we've provided them with the same level of support and protection that we provided all our people. So we cannot shoulder any more responsibilities in that regard, and we'll continue to work with our partners to make sure that no services are reduced, because really reducing services is, what is it going to be? Reducing the number of schools so that you leave children out of schools, or is it going to be reducing healthcare provided, which means people will not get the support that they need, or the workers who work for UNRWA and depend on their job there for their livelihood? So I hope we'll be able to mitigate against any reduction in services through our solid partnership with UNRWA and with our colleagues.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We hope so too. We have a question from CBS along the same lines. What is the plan if UNRWA is not fully funded? Mr. Lazzarini.
Thank you. Again, we know that UNRWA has an important shortfall. It's not a new shortfall. It's a structural financial problem compounded by cash flow, I would say, a crisis. I do believe that the cash flow can be improved with a better dialogue with member states and the donors. Today, during the conference, I suggested that we start to promote a social compact between member states and UNRWA on a multi-year basis. The mandate being provided to UNRWA in December is a 3 years mandate. And we know year after year after year what the program budget will amount. And hence, the importance to promote this multi-year commitment. And we had a number of donors today who have committed to either to renew their multi-year commitment or to increase or to step into this kind of a relation with UNRWA. Secondly, for the cash flow, we keep asking donors to front load their contribution at the beginning of the year. Pledges need to be materialized. And then, ultimately, if the resources do not match the mandate, we have to have constant discussion about member states about what do we do if the resources are not here. Responses have been found over the last few years, and I'm confident, and especially after what I heard today, that everybody believe in, all the member states who participated today strongly believe on the importance of the mandate and the importance of the impact UNRWA has on the Palestinian refugees, but also on the host country and in the region. So I expect that we will find ways to overcome this financial, I would say, gap. Having said that, it's highly unsettling. It distracts a lot of attention. It's unsettling for the 30,000 staff. It's unsettling for the Palestinian refugees. It's unsettling also for the host country, and hence the importance, once for all, to agree on a future financial model.
Thank you, Mr. Lazzarini. I'm grouping together a couple of questions from L'Orient Le Jour in Lebanon and Al Mamlaka TV in Jordan about the number of participants to today's conference. So how many countries or entities participated today, and what was the total amount pledged? These are two questions together. And then there's a question about the budget that UNRWA allocates to Palestine refugees in Lebanon, and whether ultimately in the long run these refugees will be absorbed in their host countries. I just want to look to see that I have reflected it, because I know that this is a very contentious issue. So if I can get an update on the number of participants and the total pledges for today.
Yeah, maybe I can say a few words on that. We were 59 different countries and a few organizations in that also, among that the European Union and the Commission and so on. And there were a lot of high representatives, around 35 ministers taking part. So it was a very good participation, and also very strong political statements coming up. So I think we all were very, very pleased about that. But the money, it was around $130 million that was pledged. We know that we need a lot more to safeguard the organization, the UNRWA organization, but it was a substantial amount that was pledged, and we reached in total around $130 million.
Many thanks, Mr. Erickson. Moving on to the next question, also grouping two. One is addressed to the Commissioner General of UNRWA about the budget allocated to Lebanon, and the other one in relation to it is addressed to Mr. Safadi about the talk about annexation annexing part of the Palestinian territories. The question from Lorient Le Jour again is, do you believe that in the long run the Palestinian refugees will be absorbed in host countries? The question from Lorient Le Jour is about Lebanon, but there are several questions about the impact of annexation on Palestine refugees. So maybe Mr. Lazzarini and then Mr. Safadi. Thank you.
Thank you. Just the short answer on Lebanon. Lebanon represents about between $90 and $100 million on the core budget, what we call the program budget, and basically has an appeal for the emergency program dealing with the impact of the Syrian crisis in the country for about $200 million. So these are the budget allocated, planned for UNRWA in Lebanon.
And the contentious question of the impact of annexation.
Thank you so much. Today, I think the overwhelming sentiment in the conference was clear in supporting UNRWA, was clear in supporting refugees' rights, and also was clear in opposing annexation, not only as a violation of international law, which cannot be accepted, but also as a very dangerous measure that would undermine all prospects for peace. We've said very clearly that annexation cannot happen, for if it does, it will kill the two-state solution, it will undermine all prospects for peace, and it will make the apartheid, systemized apartheid, an inevitable consequence of the Israeli decision to annex. Annexing 1/3 of the occupied West Bank simply means there's no viable two-state solution anymore. So we continue to urge everybody to speak, everybody who believes in peace and everybody who believes in international law, to speak against annexation and to act against annexation. The window is narrowing. I think that our message should be clear that annexation cannot happen, for it will simply deny all peoples of the region their right to live in peace. And that is the sentiment that we are seeing coming from all corners of the globe, as was expressed today and as has been expressed over the last few weeks and months by almost everybody in the international community. And if I may just to elaborate on that a little bit in Arabic, because I'm told some of the Arabic journalists would like me to say a couple of words in Arabic. بداية كما قلنا المؤتمر اليوم كان واضحا في تأكيد دعم الوكالة وفي تأكيد ضرورة استمرار الوكالة بالقيام بواجباتها وفق تكليفها الأممي إزاء أكثر من 5 ملايين لاجئ فلسطيني. وكان هنالك أيضا الشعور العام داخل المؤتمر بأن معظم الدول تحدثت عن رفضها لأي ضم لأراضٍ فلسطينية محتلة خرقاً للقانون الدولي وتقويضاً لكل جهود تحقيق السلام العادل والشامل. نحن حذرنا في المملكة ونحذر من أن الضم يجب أن لا يمر، وعلى المجتمع الدولي أن يتحدث بوضوح وأن يتحرك بفاعلية من أجل منع الضم، لأن منع الضم سيعني قتل حل الدولتين، وهو الحل الذي أجمعت غالبية دول العالم على أنه السبيل الوحيد لتحقيق السلام العادل والشامل على أساس القانون الدولي، وبما يضمن قيام الدولة الفلسطينية المستقلة القابلة للحياة وعاصمتها القدس المحتلة على خطوط 4 من حزيران 1967 لتعيش بأمن وسلام إلى جانب إسرائيل، وفق أيضا مبادرة السلام العربية التي تحدثت عن سلام كامل مقابل الانسحاب من الأراضي العربية المحتلة وعن حل متفق عليه لقضية اللاجئين. النافذة تضيق، التحدي يكبر، الانعكاسات ستكون كارثية على كل فرص تحقيق السلام، على علاقات إسرائيل بالمملكة، وعلى أيضا السلام، مسعى تحقيق السلام الشامل برمته. لذلك يجب أن نتحرك الآن وأن نتحرك بشكل فاعل، لأن قتل حل الدولتين سيجعل من خيار الدولة الواحدة، حيث سيتكرس نظام الأبارتايد والتمييز العنصري وهذا شيء لا يمكن أن يقبل به العالم، لأنه خرق لكل حقوق الإنسان وخرق لكل القيم التي نجمع عليها، وهو أيضا خرق واضح للقانون الدولي الذي يشكل أساسا لعلاقاتنا الدولية وسيشكل الضم سابقة لا يمكن للمجتمع الدولي أن يقبلها.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. But since you have the floor, I think you're going to keep it because there's a question from the Washington Post for you. And it's a question about the situation of Palestine refugees in Jordan. So we speak about nearly 2.2 million, of whom nearly 370 to 400,000 live in refugee camps. Most have the Jordanian citizenship. I am quoting the question from the Washington Post. To what extent are these Palestine refugees integrated in Jordan? And do all of them receive UNRWA assistance, or only those in the camps?
Well, pretty much those who are registered with UNRWA received UNRWA's assistance. And as far as what Jordan does to address the needs of refugees, Jordan has done everything it can to make sure that they have the dignified life that they deserve. They have access to everything that any Jordanian citizen has. That said, having done the right thing, having done the human thing, having done the necessary thing to make sure that people live a dignified and decent life, does not in any way negate their right to return per international law and per international legitimacy and United Nations resolutions. We believe the refugee issue it is a final status issue. It should be resolved within a comprehensive solution to the Palestinian issue on the basis of the two-state solution and a solution that ends the occupation that started in 1967, so that we can have the just and lasting peace for which we have been in the kingdom, along with all our partners, doing everything we can to achieve. Because, as I said, nobody is doing anybody a favor by opting for peace. Peace is a right for everybody, and Palestinian-Israeli peace is essential for regional peace. That said, again, that peace is threatened by annexation, and that is why we're urging everybody to make sure that stop annexation in order to protect peace. Because, as I said, stopping annexation, preventing annexation is protecting peace and protecting the right of people to live in peace. So Jordan will continue to do everything it possibly can to make sure that Palestinian refugees have the decent, dignified life that they deserve. At the same time, we'll continue to work with everybody to make sure that we do create horizons for a negotiated settlement for the parties to go back to the table, so that we can get on track to solving on this conflict on basis that people will embrace and people will accept, and will ultimately allow all of us in the region to live free from a conflict that could explode at any moment should people lose hope, and should frustration, as the Commissioner General has just alluded to, should frustration and despair dig more roots. The moment is critical. Now is the time to act. And if we do not act now, everybody in the region will pay the price of this failure to achieve peace, and of the consequences of despair and hopelessness prevailing.
Many thanks, Mr. Erickson. I think you're called back for some additional clarifications. There are requests for clarifications by Ilhan Ben Zion and Tova Lazarov about the money pledge, the exact amount pledged in the conference, who made these pledges mostly, and how long this is expected to sustain UNRWA operations. Thanks.
I think that going into details in this, I think it must be a question that Mr. Philippe Lazzarini had to maybe answer on, but it was the pledges from the countries that took part on the meeting today that was counted together, and it was included quite a lot of different countries, and also the pledge from Saudi Arabia that was on $50 million. So I think that together came up to $130 million.
Mr. Lazzarini, do you want to comment about how much this will last, or how the
I do believe it's a little bit too early to comment. We will know in the coming days, weeks, what's behind the pledge, when will they be materialized. And like in every international donor conference, we have to unpack and see what's directed for the core budget or for an emergency response, and also to look at if part of the pledge being made today was not already a contribution of the member states. So we just ended the conference 15 minutes before the press conference, so we will know more in detail. But having said that, as the Secretary General said, this is not enough at this stage to be comforted, to say with comfort that we will end the year. More effort needs to be undertaken. It was the first high-level event this year of a series, and certainly we will redouble effort to make sure that we are meeting end by the end of the year.
Again, since you have the floor, there's a direct question about possible impact specifically on schools and education, since this is UNRWA's flagship success story. So whether the lack of funding can have now a direct impact on schools.
I mean, for the time being, we are planning the back to school with all the respective host countries, and we are planning to be on time. So no indication at this stage that school will be impacted. And having said that, would this be the case, clearly we would need prior discussion with the member states, with the host countries, and this will not be an UNRWA unilateral decision.
Thank you very much. We have a question from the Spanish news agency, EFE, about whether UNRWA is allocating a specific budget to respond to COVID-19, since this is now the biggest crisis in the world.
I guess the question is for me. The agency had a special appeal for the COVID-19 response of 93 million, and which I have to say proportionally is better funded than the program budget or the other emergency appeal of the organization. But let me also highlight that it is thanks to the fact that we have 30,000 staff that we have and that we have been in a position to respond within day in shifting our modus vivendi operandi on the ground, commuting in our medical health assistants into telemedicine, we're commuting into remote education, and also home delivery when it comes to food assistance to the most vulnerable. And this is possible because UNRWA is a direct implementer, and in reality is one of the largest scaled community-based UN organization.
Thank you. I know I am kind of abusing your generosity and kindness, but since I have you all on the panel and we have so many questions, can I squeeze in a couple more? Assuming it's a yes. Mr. Lazzarini, a question to you about whether UNRWA has been in contact with the US administration to ask it to rethink its defunding in light of the impact of COVID-19.
As you know, I started 3 months ago in the middle of COVID-19, and I have reached out a number of capital calling for support, and I have also reached out the administration in Washington.
Okay. I do not think that we have any more questions. Well, on this basis, I would like to thank my panelists very, very much for having given me that honor and for having made themselves available. Thank the journalists and the media for their continued interest in the Palestine refugee story primarily, and consequently, the UNRWA story. We need to work together on keeping that story until there is a just and lasting solution to their plight. So with this, thank you all for your attendance, and I wish you all a good evening. Bye now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.